What's up, KOM Chasers? So I'm bringing you an awesome segment today. This is Honda to PCH, and this segment takes place on the Santa Ana River Trail. So if you're familiar with the area, then you probably know a little bit about the Santa Ana River Trail, but it's a very flat, very fast trail that takes you all the way from Corona to Huntington Beach. I should say this segment of it actually takes you from Corona to Huntington Beach, but the Santa Ana River Trail actually starts up in the Big Bear Mountains, and you can mountain bike your way all the way down it into San Bernardino. And in San Bernardino on Waterman Avenue, the road trail actually starts right there on Waterman, and that trail will take you from San Bernardino all the way to Norco, and then the trail stops right there, and there's a 14-mile gap where the trail is not connected. And it's actually not very difficult to connect the trails, so you just have to go through some residential areas and some country land to get to the start of the trailhead in Corona, which is on Green River Road. And for anybody coming from out of town, I would suggest driving to Green River Road. There's a nice parking lot at the start of the trailhead there, and then you could take it from there. It's very clearly marked. You won't pass a single car all the way to the beach and back. So today I started at the trailhead in Corona, and so it's 58 miles if you go all the way to the beach and back. So about this segment in particular, the Honda to PCH segment, it's 13.23 miles long and a negative 0.2% grade. And so as you can see from my video, there's a lot of long, flat, straight sections of it, and then you have those overpasses that you dip down underneath. And once you go under, then you got to boost your power a little bit to get up the small hill, but it's just small fluctuations like that. So long straightaways, broken up by these little dips under these bridges. So let's pull up our KOM holder here, and this is going to be Big Bill of Ergogenic Sports Nutrition. And so I did a little looking into Bill, because his KOM on this was insane. It was 27 minutes and 17 seconds. His average speed was 29.1 miles per hour. And his average watts on this 13-mile segment was 393. That's insane. So, of course, on a profound KOM like this, I had to look him up a little bit and see how he did it, see who this guy is. And so I came to find out some pretty good stuff. In his bio, it had a lot listed there. It turns out that he was a California time trial champion. And he did this segment in 2016. In his bio, he also had listed on there that he is a professor at Cal State Fullerton as part of their kinesiology program. So he's big on the cycling scene. I believe that he's coaching right now. And anyway, just a little background on this guy. I'm actually going to speed up the video now because it's a long segment. And you could see right there that I accidentally took a wrong turn, which probably cost me 30 seconds to a minute. But still, that's no excuse for not getting the PR. And one thing that I know about the time that I did PR on this is that I had some help with some drafting. And usually when I start the day early in the morning, then I can always find somebody to draft off for at least part of my trip to the beach. And so that's key. And every now and then, I do come across somebody on a time trial bike, and I feel like that's where I can really make a dent in my time, if I can draft off a time trialist. And if no time trialist is available, then if I've got a couple guys that I can rotate on the front with, then we will crush this segment. And I feel like it makes the whole experience a whole lot better. You go fast, and you also end up doing a lot of work, and collectively, you really put the hammer down. On this particular day, I didn't find anybody to draft off for this particular segment. I worked the draft with some other people on different parts of the trail, but in this segment, Honda to PCH, I didn't have anybody to draft off the entire time. So I did it all solo, and I went pretty hard. I was trying to keep an average a wattage over 200, which I did have. You'll see at the end that I averaged 220 watts for the whole segment. And for whatever reason, on the flats like this, when you're going really fast, I feel like it's more difficult to maintain a higher wattage. I feel like when I'm in the mountains and I'm just grinding up a hill and don't have a choice as to what gearing I can use when I'm climbing, I feel like I just naturally, put out 260 to 300 watts, and I could do that for an extended period of time. While on this, moving 20 plus miles per hour, I feel like it's more difficult to keep that wattage up in the 200 range. Even though it's all relative, it shouldn't be much of a difference. Now, I just wanted to point out a few things that you might see along the side of the trail here. And one thing to notice is that I keep going back and forth over bridges. So I think in this segment there are 2 bridges that you cross. I just crossed one a moment ago to come to this side of the riverbed, and then toward the end of the segment I'm going to cross back over to go onto the opposite side once again. And so the bridges are kind of cool. They look really nice, they're interesting, they're a fun piece of scenery and architecture, and it's pretty good, but it is a little bit rickety and you can't keep a fast speed. So when you're doing this, if you're averaging whatever mile per hour speed you're doing, then just know that when you get to that bridge, you're not going to keep that same speed. So if you're trying to average 20 miles per hour all the way to the beach, then count on just some little sections of bridge crossing that you're going to be more like around 10 miles per hour on. Another thing you will see is that there are several parks along the way. Now, most of the parks don't have a bathroom, they don't have a drinking fountain, but there is one park that's about 10 miles from the beach that is the spot where most cyclists stop to refill their water bottles and to go to the bathroom, and it's the perfect location. However, if you do stop there on the way to the beach, then it will break up this segment and you're going to be accumulating all the time that you stopped there. So on this particular day, what I did was I went all the way straight to the beach with enough supplies to get me there, and then also enough supplies to get me the 10 miles back to the park that I wanted to stop to refill my water bottles at. Something else that I've come across on this trail is a lot of e-bikers actually. And so there's been different situations where I've just been working my butt off, going as fast as I can, and then a dude on an e-bike with flip-flops just sitting up, talking on his phone while he's riding, just flies by me, okay? And whenever somebody flies by me like that, I always try and jump on their tail. So I put up some big watts to catch up to this guy in particular. This actually happened more than once, but I put up some big watts to catch this guy and draft off him. And I'll tell you, somebody sitting up on an e-bike is a fantastic draft. They block a whole lot of wind, and so you could really get a lot of speed going if you can stick behind one of those e-bikers. And if I remember correctly, I was putting up probably 350 watts just to keep him, but I felt like the miles were flying by for every second that I was able to stay with that guy. I felt like the advantage over the wind was huge and extremely impactful. But still, that was not my PR day. I think it's also important to point out some cautions that you should take while you're on this trail. And one is the homeless population. It's not nearly as bad as it used to be, but there are homeless people underneath a lot of those bridges, and I wouldn't want to be out here alone if it was dark and there's nobody else on the trail, which I believe that the trail closes down at 6 p.m. So most of the day, you're going to see tons of cyclists out here, lots of joggers as well. So I think for the most part, during the day, it's pretty safe. But just be aware of your surroundings and who else is on the trail and in the area. One other precaution to take is that with all the cyclists on this trail, there is very strong potential for a collision with another rider. If you're not paying attention and if you if you aren't being courteous and following proper etiquette while on the bike. So whenever you pass somebody, I always try and yell up to them that I'm on their left before I pass, and definitely watching for oncoming traffic as well, because there's a lot of people coming the opposite direction. So like that big group that I just passed right there, I had to be pretty careful right there because there was a rider coming the opposite direction, and I had about 8 to 10 people that I needed to pass. So just be careful with the other riders on the road. And interesting enough, that was my last bridge that I just passed, and so now I am on the north side of the river, and it's a straight shot to the beach. I think it's about 2 miles from here, and so we are almost through this segment. And you'll notice that on this last section here, I tried to keep my watts as high as possible. I think I was averaging 260 to 300 watts for a lot of it, and it's a little bit over 2 miles, I believe, from that bridge all the way to the beach. I was actually a little bit nervous about holding that high wattage, especially after, a good 40 minutes or so working hard for the whole segment. And the reason is because I still had another 29 miles I had to ride back to the car from this point. So I just did it for the segment to see how it goes. And then I figured I might be struggling a little bit on the way back, but it's a risk I was willing to take. And one other factor to take into consideration is the wind. Now, there is always wind on this trail, and today I didn't actually feel a whole lot of wind, so I think I must have had a slight tailwind heading to the beach, because on the way back from the beach I felt a little bit of a headwind. Not much, but enough to slow me down just a little bit. And so I've done this where there were times that I could not make it to the beach because that wind was pushing and pushing and pushing. But then on the way home, it was smooth sailing, killer fast. Alright, so that's the end of the segment, and let's take a look at my stats here. So I did it in 37 minutes and 48 seconds. That's my third best time, and it looks like my average watts were 220. So I want to point out here that even though this was my third fastest attempt, my watts was 20 watts harder than any other attempt. So my PR, my watts were 199, and this time I got it up to 220. So the effort was a whole lot better. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you are local to the area, then I'm sure you're probably very familiar with this segment and this whole trail. And if you're not, then come out, because it's the perfect ride if you want a flat, fast, car-free ride.